Chapter 6. Canada. 1989. Immigrant. A myth has grown that Musk, because his father was on and off successful, arrived in North America in 1989 with a lot of money, perhaps pockets filled with emeralds. Errol at times encouraged that perception, but in fact, Errol's proceeds from the Zambian emerald mine had become worthless years earlier. When Elon left South Africa, his father gave him $2,000 in traveler's checks, and his mother provided him with another $2,000 by cashing out a stock account she had opened with the money she won in a beauty contest as a teenager. Otherwise, what he mainly had with him when he arrived in Montreal was a list of his mother's relatives he had never met. He planned to call his mother's uncle but discovered that he had left Montreal. So he went to a youth hostel where he shared a room with 5 other people. I was used to South Africa where people will just rob and kill you, he says, so I slept on my backpack until I realized that not everyone was a murderer. He wandered the town, marveling that people did not have bars on their windows. After a week, he bought a $100 Greyhound Discovery Pass that allowed him to travel by bus anywhere in Canada for 6 months. He had a second cousin his age, Mark Elon, who lived on a farm in Saskatchewan province not far from Moose Jaw where his grandparents had lived, so he headed there. It was more than 1,700 miles from Montreal. The bus, which stopped at every hamlet, took days to wander across Canada. At one stop, he got off to find lunch and just as the bus was leaving, ran to jump back on. Unfortunately, the driver had taken off his suitcase with his traveler's checks and clothes. All he had now was the knapsack of books he carried everywhere. The difficulty of getting traveler's checks replaced, it took weeks, was an early taste of how the financial payment system needed disruption. When he got to the town near his cousin's farm, he used some of the change he had in his pocket to call. "Hey, it's Elon, your cousin from South Africa," he said. "I'm at the bus station." The cousin showed up with his father, took him to a Sizzler steakhouse, and invited him to stay at their wheat farm, where he was put to work cleaning grain bins and helping to raise a barn. There he celebrated his 18th birthday with a cake they baked with "Happy Birthday, Elon" written in chocolate icing. After 6 weeks, he got back on the bus and headed for Vancouver, another 1,000 miles away, to stay with his mother's half-brother. When he went to an employment office, he saw that most jobs paid $5 an hour, but there was one that paid $18 an hour, cleaning out the boilers in the lumber mill. This involved donning a hazmat suit and shimmying through a small tunnel that led to the chamber where the wood pulp was being boiled, while shoveling out the lime that had caked on the walls. If the person at the end of the tunnel didn't remove the goo fast enough, you would be trapped while sweating your guts out, he recalls. It was like a Dickensian steampunk nightmare filled with dark pipes and the sound of jackhammers. May and Tosca. While Elon was in Vancouver, May Musk flew from South Africa, having decided that she wanted to move as well. She sent back scouting reports to Tosca. Vancouver was too cold and rainy, she wrote. Montreal was exciting, but people there spoke French. Toronto, she concluded, was where they should go. Tosca promptly sold their house and furniture in South Africa. Then she joined their mother in Toronto, where Elon also moved. Kimball stayed behind in Pretoria to finish his last year in high school. At first, they all lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with Tosca and her mother sharing a bed while Elon slept on the couch. There was little money. May remembers crying when she spilled some milk because she didn't have enough to buy any more. Tosca got a job at a hamburger joint, Elon as an intern in Microsoft's Toronto office, and May at the university, a modeling agency, and as a diet consultant. "I worked every day and also 4 nights a week," she says. "I took off one afternoon, Sunday, to do the laundry and get groceries. I didn't even know what my kids were doing because I was hardly at home." After a few months, they were making enough money to afford a rent-controlled 3-bedroom apartment. It had felt wallpaper, which May insisted that Elon rip down, and a horrid carpet. They were going to buy a $200 replacement carpet, but Tosca insisted on a thicker one for $300 because Kimball and their cousin Peter were coming over to join them and would sleep on the floor. Their second big purchase was a computer for Elon. He had no friends or social life in Toronto, and he spent most of his time reading or working on the computer. Tosca, on the contrary, was a saucy teenager eager to go out. "I'm coming with you," Elon would declare, not wanting to be lonely. "No, you're not," she would reply. But when he insisted, she ordered, "You have to stay 10 feet away from me at all times." He did. He would walk behind her and her friends, carrying a book to read whenever they went into a club or party.